Hello and welcome to the second installment of the Seattle Aquarium's Ocean Career Series. We are thrilled to have folks from all around the nation and really the world joining us today to learn about ocean careers at the Seattle Aquarium. My name is Dave Glenn, and I am broadcasting live from the Seattle Aquarium on the shores of the Puget Sound. The Seattle Aquarium honors our location on the traditional territories of the Coast Salish peoples who stewarded these lands and waters for generations and continue to do so today. Let me start by telling you a little bit about what you can expect today. The Seattle Aquarium's Ocean Career Series seeks to inspire and connect the next generation of ocean stewards with information on the career paths and educational opportunities available in ocean science and conservation. You will get to learn from those, you'll get to learn about those career and educational opportunities in a couple of different ways today. First, we'll start with a panel of aquarium staff who will speak today about their own journeys to become employed at the Seattle Aquarium. Today, we'll feature two of our biologists from the aquarium's fish and invertebrate team, as well as an educator at the aquarium. You'll have an opportunity to ask questions of the panelists, so please type your questions into the chat as they arise. Following our career panel, we'll get to speak with Joe Kobayashi from the University of Washington's College of the Environment, where he is the marine biology academic advisor. Joe has a long history of advising students as they pursue their own careers related to marine science. Throughout today's presentations, we encourage you to ask questions and chat with one another using the YouTube live chat feature. Now, before you meet the staff at the Seattle Aquarium, I want to introduce you to our moderator for the career panel, who will be asking your questions to aquarium staff about their jobs and career path. It's my honor to introduce you to Samantha Lynn, who is a Seattle Aquarium volunteer and our Youth Ocean Advocate program. Samantha, welcome. And can you tell us a little bit about why you love the Seattle Aquarium and volunteering here?
Thank you so much again for that lovely introduction, Dave. I have to say, the reasons why I love the Seattle Aquarium go on, but I have to say, at the very beginning of my time here in Seattle, I have my favorite wildlife, and the Seattle Aquarium has always been my home to really dive under the surface and explore the marine world without having to jump into the frankly freezing waters up here. It's really cold up here in Seattle, but I'm also glad it's become my home to now inspire others and educate others as a volunteer. So I'm glad that I've gotten that chance and that opportunity, and we're here today. So it's a wonderful time, and I love the Seattle Aquarium for so many more reasons than that, but that's just a glimpse.
Great. Well, thank you, Samantha Lynn. And just like many in our audience, you're interested in pursuing an ocean-related career yourself. So that makes you the perfect host for today's Q&A session with our panel. So please take it away.
Sure thing, Dave. So, welcome again, everyone, to the second installment of Ocean Career Series. Once again, I'm absolutely thrilled and honored to be the moderator for these career panels here for Ocean Career Series. So, as Dave mentioned, we will be taking a look at the career paths and tips and tricks of the Fish and Invertebrates team here at the aquarium, as well as the educators here at the aquarium. So, this is your time to ask all of your burning questions about these career paths, what it's like to get to this point in your career, and what you can do starting in your own position to get to this point. So with that said, we are so thrilled to introduce you to our three staff members here at the Seattle Aquarium who will be joining us for the career panel this day. So let's let them introduce themselves with a quick little video. Take it away.
My name is Andy Sim, and I am the Associate Curator of Fish and Invertebrates. I have been working at the Seattle Aquarium for the last 14 years and in the public aquarium industry for 23 years. I manage the aquarium's tropical fish and invertebrate collections. I get to feed the fish, maintain the exhibits, also get to help to design new exhibitry. I get to participate in research, animal collection, and get to do a lot of scuba diving in the field. I really like the variety. The days are never exactly the same. I get a really good mix of hands-on work and interaction with the animals. We've got a wonderful staff, a variety of people that I get to work with. I get to spend time in the field conducting research. I get to do a lot of scuba diving, participate in conservation research that the aquarium is working on. Those are all things that I really value. I've always had an interest in the water. I've always had a really strong connection with marine environment, rivers, lakes, streams. I grew up in Seattle, and I lived fairly close to Lake Washington. And I can remember as a kid just going down, there was a a public access kind of wedged between two houses. And I'd run down there with a snorkel mask on, and I spent as much time as I possibly could in the water.
My name is Brynn Fredrickson, and I am an aquarist here at the Seattle Aquarium. I've been in the field for about 5 or 6 years, with about 3 years being a full-time aquarist. So my job is to replicate and maintain water ecosystems and the animals in them. And this in turn provides education and promotes conservation of those environments out in the wild so that they can last for years to come. And so ultimately, my job is really conservation through taking care of animals at an aquarium. I think people would be most surprised to know about my job that it's not just taking care of the fish via husbandry tasks like cleaning and feeding. We wear a lot of hats, I like to say. There's a lot of big variety. So I get to do a lot of really cool things like doing fish surgeries I helped out with the other day and medicating fish or taking care of animals. Sometimes I'm a plumber. Some days I get to completely design an entire new system or plan out what an ecoscape inside of a tank is going to look like. And some days I get to be an interpreter and inspire others to go into this field. And some days I'm a diver. So the variety, I think, is what people don't realize is part of this job. And it's also my favorite part of my job.
My name is Nicole Killebrew. I'm the interpretation coordinator here at the Seattle Aquarium, and I also have the pleasure of being a scientific diver for the organization. I've been in the field for 21 years, and I've been here at the Seattle Aquarium for 19 years this month. As an interpretation coordinator, I get to work with the awesome staff and volunteers that welcome all of the guests here to the Seattle Aquarium. I have an opportunity to share the stories about the animals in our care and the ecosystems that they call home. As an interpretation scuba diver, scientific diver, I also have the opportunity to take care of the animals and assist the life science team with the husbandry and the maintenance of the exhibits, as well as educating people from underwater. Today, I had a wonderful opportunity to dive with our wolf eels, and I have to say they are one of my favorites, but don't tell the other fish. There's nothing like the feeling of having a wolf eel wrap across your shoulders as you feed it nibbles of fish and shrimp. The wolf eels in our care, they're used to us. They know that we're here to take care of them. And when they come out and say hello, it's just an awesome opportunity to see them and work with them in a new way. One of the hardest things to adjust to in my role is that I used to spend a lot of time on the floor, at the exhibits, interacting with guests. As a coordinator now, I don't spend quite as much time on the floor. I spend more of my time supporting my team from behind the scenes. I do have those moments when I miss having the interaction with a child that walks up and tugs on my sleeve. It's such a reminder that our work really can spark curiosity. And I still have that feeling. I still do that work, but sometimes I miss that tug on my sleeve, not being on the floor as often.
What a lovely video and such a great glimpse into our panelists' lives before diving into our Q&A and discussion today. So I bet all of you in the audience, and I've seen a couple things pop up so far, but I bet all of you have some incredible questions in the works. So please remember to put them into the YouTube chat and they might get addressed today. And we'll try our best to address as many questions as possible and get answers to you at some point. Now, with that said, I believe we have reached the moment we've all been waiting for, and it's time to introduce our panelists and bring them up onto the stage. So first up, let's say hello to Andy. Andy's gonna jump up onto the stage. Hello, hello.
Hey everybody, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, and then next up, we'll say hello to Brynn. Oh, we'll see if Brynn's gonna pop up on the screen. Oh, there's Brynn. All right. And last but not least, we will bring Nicole onto the stage.
Hello,
and there's
everyone.
Nicole. Hello, everyone. So we have our lovely full panel ahead of us, and I think we can jump straight into our questions and our discussions. Now, I want to start off with a question that I feel like a lot of people really want some quick answers to. So this will go to all three of you, in fact, but we'll start off with Andy. So Andy, when did you know you wanted to work at an aquarium?
Well, I grew up here in Seattle, and I was fortunate enough to really kind of grow up at the Seattle Aquarium. My family had a membership here, and I really can't remember a time as a kid not coming down as a kind of a frequent visitor with my mom usually and my younger sister. And so this place has always inspired me. It's always been a special place for me. And it really inspired my love of marine biology from a very, very early age.
All right. Now, Brynn, what's your take on that question as well? We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, can you guys hear me okay still? Yes, great. I knew that I wanted to be a marine biologist from the age of 4, actually, but I didn't know what in the career options I wanted to do until after I graduated college. So I had always loved going to aquariums. I went to every single one that I could. I volunteered at them in high school, but when I really knew was when I got my first internship after college at the Oregon Coast Aquarium and actually got the hands-on experience and realized just how fun it could be and how much I really loved it and how much aquariums could make a difference, and I wanted to be part of it. So yeah, right after college, I think, is when I realized.
That's a lovely point there, Brynn, especially that moment where you joined that internship and you had that experience. That's a great point. And I feel like we'll definitely touch on that a little bit later. But Nicole, I'd love to hear your approach to this question as well. So when did you know you wanted to work at an aquarium?
I realized that the aquarium was going to be a primary career path for me when I started to volunteer here at the Seattle Aquarium. I had also gone to school for marine biology, and my joining a volunteer program here opened up a number of doors of opportunity, and I knew from the very beginning that this is where I wanted to stay.
A lovely response there. And I feel like this is an excellent segue, especially with Brynn and Nicole's responses. I have another question that'll be addressed to all three of you, because there's a lot of people, especially myself, who are interested in what you all did as far as education goes to get to this point in your careers. So, Andy, I'd love to ask you this question here. What was your major in college, and how did that major prepare you for your current role at the aquarium now?
I was a biology major. I went to a small liberal arts school that didn't have a specific marine biology program, so I've got an emphasis in marine biology, but biome was as close as I could get to marine biology. I always knew that I had the interest in biological sciences and marine biology in particular. Didn't know exactly what I was going to do with that, but bringing that interest with me to college. The education that I got there, really the sound fundamentals in marine biology, has given me the knowledge that I need to be successful in the field of aquarium science.
Excellent response there, especially just that preparation. And you did mention that you had an emphasis in marine biology, and there wasn't necessarily like major marine biology, but that's the closest you can get. And that's pretty common as far as colleges go. So I think that's something a lot of people out there in the audience can definitely consider. Now, Brynn, I want to hear about your college path and how that prepared you for your position today. What's your take on that?
Yeah, my major was also in biology, with an emphasis in marine sciences, and I did a double emphasis actually in zoology as well, the minor in scientific diving. And so a combination of those things really prepared me by teaching me all the nitty-gritty details about and the animal physiology of all different kinds of invertebrates and vertebrates, fish in the ocean, as all the way up to greater scale, like the ecosystems and how they work and the chemistry of ocean water. So it really made me familiar with how everything works and how it all works together. And that really prepared me for working with animals and closed systems, because that way you kind of understand how everything works individually and how they all work together. And as a scientific diving minor, that really helped just prepare me in
confidence as a diver to have that be part of my job.
Great points there, Brynn, especially that scientific diving portion. Wow, that's something I haven't heard yet, so that's something definitely to consider. Now, Nicole, it's your chance to have this take on this question. So what was your college path like, and how did it prepare you for your career today?
I knew, as I mentioned, that I wanted to study the ocean from a very, very young age. And I did pursue my Bachelor's of Science in Marine Biology. And that's when I started to volunteer here at the aquarium when I finished with that degree. While I was here, I had the opportunity not necessarily to do all of the field work or work in a lab, which I thought was my future. I thought I was going to be in the field. I thought I was going to be working in a lab primarily. And that was the direction that I had originally been heading in. And when I came to the aquarium, I really started getting more involved in the education aspects and interpretation on the floor and doing classroom work or doing outreach for the community and being out on our local beaches and educating people there. And because I fell in love with that, I decided to go back to school and get my Master's of Science in Ecological Literacy and Environmental Education. And coming back here to the aquarium was a perfect blend between my love of marine biology and my love of education and conservation and sharing that with all of our guests.
What a lovely response. That blend that you spoke of just there, that's a huge component to essentially what everyone does here at the aquarium. It's supporting that mission to educate guests, and that's a lovely point that you made there, Nicole. Now, we have talked about all of the career paths that all of you have taken to get to your point in your career today. Now, Andy, I have a question for you. Since you are the curator of the fish and invertebrates, there are a lot of roles entailed into that title there, but I want to know, do you have to have a college degree to become a biologist at the aquarium and work with, fish and invertebrates? Or are there any other certifications or experiences that you need or you highly recommend?
Yeah, well, Samantha, I would say that historically, yes, it was true that a college degree in the biological sciences was a prerequisite for a biology position at a public aquarium. But that's something that I feel like has been changing recently, as there has been more emphasis on the value of volunteer experience, of internship programs and things like that to bring people into the field that don't have maybe that classic bio college background. So while that is certainly helpful to have, I wouldn't say that it is 100% necessary as a starting place to get involved in this as a career.
Yeah, especially that component that you mentioned about like internships and volunteering. That's definitely, I've noticed, at least personally from my experience as a high school volunteer, that's definitely been a huge emphasis so far. And kind of bouncing off of this question that I just asked Andy, Nicole, you have a role that's very, education centered. And I absolutely love how you mentioned that transition that you had and that realization that you really want to dive into education. So I'd love to know, do you need a college degree to become an educator at the aquarium? Or what are some other recommendations you have or certifications that you would recommend for anyone who wants to get into that area?
I think the first thing that you need is a passion for sharing and a passion for being able to and wanting to be a part of that story to inspire conservation. That certainly aligns with our mission. It is our mission. You don't have to have a college degree to become an educator here at the Seattle Aquarium. I know that many of our educators that lead our formal and informal programs do have college degrees, but it's not always in education. Sometimes it's in environmental science. Sometimes it's in other fields. Sometimes it's in the arts. We have a number of people that come from an arts background or a theater background, and so they're very dynamic presenters, and that is a wonderful skill to have for engaging with people and engaging with strangers coming from all over the world that visit a place like an aquarium. And so the desire to chat with people and comfort having conversations about a variety of different topics is certainly a good skill as well. And I would say that most of the people here, no matter what hat they wear, no matter what their title is, we're all educators in some way.
That is incredible there. Again, Nicole, your hat analogy, I love it so much. Again, like everyone here, they have so many different roles, and just having that passion and getting ready to educate people, an excellent place to start. That's a really great foundation. Now, we're going to transition over to some of the work that our Fish and Invertebrates team do as far as husbandry goes, and also what it really means to be a part of the team working with these animals. So, Brynn, I have a question for you. So you are an aquarist here at the aquarium, but you did mention that you have a ton of other responsibilities and roles, including getting to dive. So how much do you actually get to dive as part of your position? And what do you do as a diver at the aquarium? What are some of the additions aside from, recreational diving, perhaps?
Yeah. So right now on a regular basis, I'm diving in one of our tanks once or twice a week just to help maintain things and to kind of practice my own skills. I'd say sometimes, just depending on the time of year, we could be diving 2 times a week in the tanks individually. They get dove in most days. And then sometimes it's a little slower and we dive maybe every other week or so. I do not have the chance yet to go out with the team in the field, but I'm currently training to be able to go diving with the team out in the field for collection purposes and research purposes. But as for in-tank dives, what I do currently is feed animals underwater. So there are some animals that do not feed as well from the surface. So it's important to get down to their level and hand them food, make sure that they're well fed. We also need to do some in-tank husbandry for larger exhibits. So sometimes we're using gravel washers that are the size of your chest, kind of trying to make sure we get everything clean, cleaning those big windows, all the rock work, repairing anything. And occasionally we do need to actually grab an animal out of the tanks, and that requires a diver to go down there and kind of get them in nets just so that we can examine them, make sure they're healthy, give them anything extra that they may need. Yeah.
Sweet. Lots of roles and responsibilities here at the aquarium as a diver for sure. Now, also, Andy, I'd also like to ask you this similar question. So as your current position at the aquarium, how much do you get to dive? Because there is a different title between you and Brynn, but I'd love to know how much do you get to dive? And you mentioned field work and field studies, research and whatnot. So what is it and what do you do as a field diver at the aquarium?
Well, the field diving component of the jobs is one of the things that I really value the most. I really, really enjoy the ability to get out, and whether that is locally here in the Puget Sound, somewhere in Washington State, diving, or maybe a little farther afield. The 2 primary things that the aquarium is doing when we've got divers in the water outside of our walls will be either participating in research, and we've got research programs looking at various fish populations, both here locally, out towards Nia Bay and the Strait of Fuca, looking at local rockfish populations. We have research work that we have been doing in Hawaii for the last 10 years. And so those are projects that our staff divers get to participate in. And we have also had the opportunity to go out and do collection work and go and obtain animals to bring back to add to our collections here. And so both of those are things that we have an opportunity to do, and are really they're challenging, but a tremendous amount of fun.
Andy, I love how you mentioned all those little chances at research and those chances at surveys as a field diver. I'd love to know what's the coolest place you get to travel as a research diver. Is there any place that's tropical? You mentioned Hawaii, but anything outside of that really sticks out to you?
Yes. So I mean, I've had the opportunity to travel to Hawaii a dozen times in my career here at the aquarium, and I've loved every minute of it. But more recently, we have been looking into the Coral Triangle and the waters surrounding Indonesia and some of the other island nations in that portion of the world. And so I have been fortunate enough to be part of a team on 2 separate occasions traveling to Indonesia to get to dive there, and that was truly, truly magical. And apart from just the wonderful people, the beautiful landscapes, and the fish diversity that you see in the water. For me, it was just so personally moving because I've been in this career for a long time. I've been working with fish for 20 plus years. And the opportunity for me to actually get out in the field and be in the water and see some of the corals and the clams and the fishes that I have worked with captively, or I've seen in other public aquariums before, I've seen on a television show, but I've never actually seen in their native habitat. That was really a wonderful experience.
That is so lovely, and especially that the coral triangle gets me excited anytime anyone mentions the coral triangle. I feel like it's definitely underrated, so I'm glad that you mentioned that, Andy. Now, Nicole, I have a question for you. We're obviously in this chat about diving and whatnot, but how does one even become a diver? And is there any advice you can give to someone who wants to become a diver one day?
Absolutely. I became a diver because my father was a diver, and it was through his underwater photography that I fell in love with the ocean early on in my life. It was also my father who gave me the gift of being certified when I turned 16, when I was old enough at that time. And he lived in Alaska, so I went through the certification process and learned how to dive in water even colder than the Salish Sea. I can say that learning to dive in cold water prepares you to dive anywhere in the world because of the additional equipment that you need to use. We dive in dry suits rather than wet suits. And to give you a frame of reference, the water temperature here is about 50 degrees Fahrenheit or 10 degrees Celsius. And in Alaska, when I finished my certification, the water was a whopping 34 degrees because I finished my certification in the wintertime. So it was a different experience for sure. For those of you that are interested in becoming a diver, do it. It's wonderful, and it opens up your eyes to a whole nother world. I would say that the certification process can go from anywhere between just getting your open water certification, just getting into the water, to taking a whole series of certifications to specialize in particular kinds of diving. You've heard us mention this term scientific diving, which requires not only your open water and your advanced certification, but your rescue certification, and then additional training to learn how to use a different configuration of equipment for scientific diving specifically. And that's designed for research, it's designed for field work. We do a lot of scientific diving and proficiency and a lot of practice. But I think if you have a desire to have that experience and you have the ability to get into the water, it doesn't have to be the ocean. There are a lot of places where you can learn how to dive, where there are, lakes as well. I think rivers as well. Give it a try. Go for it.
Nicole, that was such a lovely response. I hope that's really inspiring to a lot of our audience members out there who have been absolutely dying to get answers to all of their diving questions. And I have to say, when you mentioned colder than Puget Sound, I immediately started shivering, like, oh my gosh. I think that's definitely a great point that you mentioned. Just doing cold water first is probably going to prep you for anything that comes up pretty soon. So that was a great point you made there, Nicole. Now, Brynn, as an aquarist, you do work with primarily like the fish and invertebrates and whatnot, but I would love to know, why did you choose to work with fish here at the aquarium? And as an aquarium employee, do you have to specialize in the animals that you work with, or is there a little bit more flexibility? What's your take?
I don't know that I necessarily chose working with fish. It kind of chose me, but I do love it. And I think, well, I kind of did. And part of the reason that I love working with fish and invertebrates and went kind of that route, I'd say, was because I love the underrated things, the things that people don't maybe pay as much attention to. I do love marine mammals, but people pay a lot of attention to those all the time, and they know a lot less about the invertebrates and fish. So that kind of interested me, that they were just a little bit less studied and less recognized or represented. So that fascinated me, which is kind of why I chose that route. And I just started getting experience in that, and so it kind of led to jobs where I focused more on those animals. But it's pretty fun because I get to work with anything from octopus and cuttlefish and sea stars, all those kinds of invertebrates, jellies, all the way to invertebrates like wolf eels and all different kinds of tropical and cold water fish. So it's still a pretty diverse group of animals that I work with. So that kind of leads into, do you need to specialize? It kind of depends on the place that you work. Here at the Seattle Aquarium, you don't have to be too specialized. I came in with a lot of cold water animal knowledge. So I started out on the cold water side of the aquarium, but I have now shifted over to the tropical side of the aquarium, and I'm learning a lot there. So there are some general things that apply, but I didn't have to know a ton in order to be able to transition over and work there as well. So you don't necessarily have to specialize, but some aquariums do try to hire aquarists that maybe specialize or know more about a certain invertebrate. Like maybe they have an aquarist who's dedicated to jellyfish and octopus or certain species of fish. So it just kind of depends on where you're at. But I'd say for the most part, specialization is usually more geared towards the megafauna, like the marine mammals, seals, otters, those kinds of things.
The fish and invertebrates chose you, Brynn. I love that point so much there. But yeah, I also, before we move on to like another question for Andy and Nicole, I'd love to know, Brynn, what is one part of your job that brings you the most joy as an aquarist? What is that one thing that brings you the most joy?
Oh, there's so many. I don't know how to pick one. Something that brings me the most joy. I am a sucker for cephalopods, so I do love getting to work with different octopus and the cuttlefish. So for me, any kind of interaction I get where I get to, feed an animal or clean their tank and you can see those color changes. For me, that's the most amazing thing, is watching different cephalopods change colors and textures to match whatever you're handing them or whatever they're crawling on. That's pretty awesome.
Oh, sucker for cephalopods. No pun intended there, but lovely point that you made there, Brynn. Now, I have a question for Andy, and Nicole, I also asked this question towards you as well, but both of you have a role that entails hiring staff members as part of the team here at the aquarium. Is there any specific qualities or anything like that and requirements that you look for in candidates that will help you out in that process for hiring?
Well, I guess I'd say that the two biggest things that I'm looking for is I'm looking at a resume and evaluating potential applicants are really passion and commitment. And, I think one of the common things that Nicole, Brynn, and I all spoke to already was our true passion for marine science. And it was something that hit us at a young age, something that we've always been interested in, drawn to. As Brynn said, the fish and inverts chose her. And so it's finding those like-minded people, the people who are truly passionate about marine science, and then the commitment piece is folks who've been able to channel that passion and get a volunteer opportunity somewhere, or take the time to learn how to scuba dive, or taking those steps along the way that shows you that this is someone who's really thoughtful and thinking that this is where I want to go, and you can see that in the way that people make choices with the things that they're doing as they're leading up to getting started into a career.
Excellent points there, Andy. Nicole, do you have anything to add to that?
I would say passion is certainly something that we see, and that is a clear indicator that they're following and pursuing something that they really care about, which brings that commitment that Andy spoke to. I think one other thing that is a wonderful skill to have that we look for when we're hiring is that flexibility, that adaptability, the willingness to kind of go out there and try different things. I think, as you've heard, we all wear a lot of different hats. We all have a lot of different roles. Every day is different, and that brings new challenges. And so wanting to have a position that offers that kind of variety and offers an opportunity to do a lot of different things is also something that's important for people to know when they're coming into this position, that is a part of our job, and being open to that and going with the flow with that, and being able to work well in a team, because we all work very, very closely together in a team. So good communication skills, a positive outlook, a good sense of humor, wanting to have fun. Our jobs are fun, and so we like to be able to enjoy what we're doing while we're here, and we share that with each other.
That is great that all of you share that love, and especially the point about good sense of humor. I think that the fish puns and invert puns are constantly flowing in. But Nicole, I also have another question for you too. You mentioned in your introduction video that a big part of your role, you're a scientific diver, you work with education. A lot of people, at least who I've spoken to, they expect staff at an aquarium to be strictly biologists or something. So can you tell us why it's so important to work in public education at an aquarium? Why is it so vital to have that component as well?
I love that question. I think I can share from the Seattle Aquarium's perspective that we invest a lot of resources and education opportunities in the people themselves. When you walk into our aquarium here in Seattle, we don't rely on a whole lot of signage. We rely on people in the exhibits to help answer questions, to engage in those one-on-one interactions, to help people explore and discover, and really to have it be a learner-centered environment where guests and visitors and students that are coming in are able to pursue and have conversations about the things that they really love, that they're very curious about. And for me, being able to do that from underwater is icing on the cake. But for us here at the Seattle Aquarium, our culture is to make sure that that educational component is at the core of what we do, which is part of why I said that I think everyone here has a role as an educator. And I think that that's true in a lot of what we've heard from Andy and Brynn as well.
Again, lovely points there. Just understanding the importance of education in every single role here at the aquarium, as Nicole mentioned. Now, Brynn, I'd love to ask you another question. So we have a lot of people in the audience that are around my age or a little bit younger, some middle school, high school students. So what is some advice that you can give middle school, high school students, people around that age who want to work in marine science one day?
Absolutely, that's a great question. As a middle schooler and a high schooler, some things that I did were just try to get involved in marine science in any way that you can. So whatever facilities are around in your area, whether it's a museum, a marine science center, an aquarium, a zoo, anything like that, see if they have programs. I know I did a marine biologist for a day program in middle school at my local aquarium. In high school, I volunteered at my local aquarium. And also just start getting as much experience as you can. I know a lot of people in this field who helped out at pet stores, or that was where their first job was. Or you could even start your own home aquarium. I loved in middle school and high school, I was obsessed with betta fish. I don't know why, I just loved them, and I ended up learning how to breed them and gave them all for free to my friends and family. And that was, if you can pick an animal and start up your own tank, whether it's freshwater or saltwater, and just get a feel for what it's like to have to maintain that tank and that system and care for the animals. That's some great experience too. So those are some ways. Also, any sort of programs at the beach, if you've got one nearby, or even lakes and streams, if they're cleanups or things where they're just going along and sampling and they need some people to help out. Just keep an eye out for those kinds of things and get involved as much as you can.
Excellent point. Get involved, get engaged, and just find ways to participate. But yeah, I love that you mentioned that, Brynn, especially just finding any possible route to where you want to get to one day. Excellent advice there. Now, Andy, I have a question for you about what it's actually like to work in the animal care department of an aquarium. What's the hierarchy in terms of roles or positions that one would have to work up to in order to get to like a managing role? What would you say is like the positioning and the gradual progression in the aquarium animal care department?
Sure. I think the best way to look at that is, I mean, it kind of starting from maybe the most entry level, or the way that most people are first exposed to a career in aquarium science. would really be as a volunteer. We've got a wonderful volunteer program here at the Seattle Aquarium, and zoos and aquariums throughout the country really rely heavily on volunteer help. So that is often a first experience for somebody coming in. Internship program would be maybe a next step beyond that, which are often drawing folks who are college age, maybe recent college graduate, kind of in that time in their life, and looking for a more in-depth exposure to the industry beyond what you could get as a volunteer. And then, at least here at the Seattle Aquarium, a kind of a next progression beyond an intern. We have a number of part-time positions within our life sciences department that are really critical roles in helping to meet all of our animal care needs. And then beyond that, then you're looking at full-time aquarist positions, like the job that Brynn is currently in. We've got a couple of different levels of aquarist work before you move on to management, or you're splitting your time between helping to support the staff that is working at the aquarium, in addition to helping to care for the animals that are.
Sweet. You all got a really quick glimpse into that hierarchy right there. So I do believe we are approaching the end of our career panel here. So I want to address some really burning questions from the audience. There's a ton of great questions. And I would love if all of you could give me like really quick, snappy, like couple sentences answers to these. So Nicole, you're going up first. What is the deepest dive you've done as a diver?
Well, in my dreams, I've gone to the bottom of the Marianas Trench, but in reality, my deepest dive was, I want to say, 135 feet.
That is deep. Oh my goodness. Okay. Now, Brynn, I have a question. You mentioned the cephalopods. We're all suckers for cephalopods, but where do we get our octopuses?
Some of them we actually collect out here in Puget Sound or in Hawaii with permits from the Fish and Wildlife here. So we actually go out on the boat and dive for them. Others we actually get as donations when they get a little too large from other facilities. We have a larger exhibit, so we can take those animals and let them grow even bigger here.
Awesome. That is such a fun little quick fun fact for those of you in the audience who didn't know. And Andy, I have a question about our fish population here at the aquarium. This is a good one. Do we have any frogfish at the aquarium?
Yes, we do. We do have a frogfish in our tropical Pacific coral reef area. It is absolutely one of my favorite fishes. It's super cool. Getting to watch that animal feed, it amazes me every time I get to see it.
Me too. I saw that and I'm like, oh, this is going to be a good question for us. Okay, Nicole, another question for you. So what is it like to dive with sharks?
Amazing, thrilling. Sharks are one of my favorite fish, and I love watching them move through the water. They are just magnificent.
Amazing beings indeed. They get a bad rep, but honestly, they are underrated and they need more love personally. Okay, for Brynn, I have another question for you. So what is your favorite animal that you work with currently?
Well, as a sucker for cephalopods, I think I have to say cuttlefish, but that's of course what I was going to say. So I'm going to say that I also am actually really loving working with all the different corals that we have over on the tropical side of the aquarium right now, because I don't know much about them and there's so much variety and they're so beautiful. So I've been pretty fascinated about just learning about them and what they need and how to care for them and all the different varieties.
Yet again, another underrated portion of marine science. Corals are awesome. And finally, Andy, I have a question for you. What is a place that you most want to go to or return to and revisit as a research diver?
That's an easy question. Raja Ampat, Indonesia, eastern, very remote area in eastern Indonesia. Just the most incredible things that I've ever seen underwater. I would go back in a heartbeat. I'd go back tomorrow. I cannot wait until I'm able to return.
Once again, some more diving inspiration, and Nicole is pointing at that picture like, hey, you gotta go there. It's so fun. So I'm so glad we all had that chance to go through some really quick questions. But with that said, I do believe that does conclude our time here on the career panel. So I'm gonna say a couple of things before I hand this back over to Dave, and as we transition into our college section of the Ocean Career Series, which is an absolute must-see. So everyone, please stick around. First off, I'd love to thank all of our lovely panelists. So Andy, Brynn, Nicole, you all did an amazing job answering all of these questions, and you gave so much helpful insight into the lives of the FIT team here at the aquarium and educators here at the aquarium. Essentially, everyone's educators here, and I'm so happy and thankful that you got to share your roles here at the aquarium. And second, if you're an audience member, yes, I'm talking to you, and your question was not referred to during this discussion, do not fret. We have another component of Ocean Career Series happening next week around the same time, and you can ask your questions there, but we'll also go through all of these questions and try to address them through our website after the broadcasts. So your panelists and I will bid you farewell for this week, and I'll hand this back over to Dave so we can begin our University of Washington College of the Environment section. So I hope to see you all again next week, but I'll see you all later, and Dave, you can take it away. Bye, everyone.
Thank you so much, Samantha Lynn, for hosting our career panel. We appreciate you conveying the questions from the audience to our panelists, and they were a bunch of great questions today. I wish we had more time to get to each of them. I want to thank our panelists, Andy, Brynn, and Nicole, for sharing their experience as staff members at the Seattle Aquarium and for telling us about their varied paths to get to where they are now. I also want to thank our audience for all those wonderful questions that you put in the chat. If you didn't get your question answered this time, I'll remind you that we have one more Ocean Career Series event coming soon. Be sure to save your question for a future panel. We'll also be answering some of your questions in a future Seattle Aquarium blog post. It is now my pleasure to introduce you to Joe Kobayashi, who is the Marine Biology Advisor, Academic Advisor at the University of Washington's College of the Environment. Joe works with hundreds of students as they consider their academic path that will help them prepare them for their future ocean career. Let us start with a quick video introduction from Joe about the opportunities to study marine science at the University of Washington.
Hello, my name is Joe Kobayashi, and I'm the Academic Advisor for the University of Washington Marine Biology major. I'm here at the southwest corner of the UW campus by the School of Aquatic and Fisheries Sciences on Portage Bay. If you're interested in careers in marine and ocean sciences, all of us at the UW College of the Environment invite you to explore a related course of study. We offer 3 majors leading to bachelor's degrees specifically related to this field: aquatic and fisheries sciences, marine biology, and oceanography. These majors are supported by over 55 faculty specializing in marine and freshwater science, and our schools have been ranked among the best in the world. You will find rigorous programs which develop research, lab, and fieldwork skills through our courses, vessels, and our Marine Field Station Friday Harbor Labs. While we take advantage of the marine environment in our own state, opportunities for students extend far beyond to study Arctic or tropical marine biology. Our programs work for students applying to the UW from high school as freshmen, as well as students applying to transfer from community or technical colleges. In addition to these 3 programs, the College of the Environment has 5 other majors in environmental science and studies, as well as 4 unique interdisciplinary minors. You can explore our mini programs online, and I represent a team of academic advisors for the College of the Environment programs that are all available to communicate with prospective students and their families. Thank you, and we look forward to connecting with you soon.
Joe, we'll bring you up on the screen here. It's great to see you, and thank you for joining us for the Seattle Aquarium's Ocean Career Series.
Great to see you, Dave. Thanks so much for hosting me.
Our pleasure. So our first question for you is, can you tell us about how students study marine fish and invertebrates in your programs?
Yeah, I'm really excited to join everybody. It's been so fun learning from the professionals at the aquarium on the panel. And what we're really talking about is what your undergraduate college education would be like. So right after high school, what it could be like to study fish or invertebrates if you're a marine biology student at the University of Washington. And I have two really fun ways to highlight this. First of all, one of the neat things about UW is the amazing amount of research that we have going on there. And this is represented with fish, especially through the UW Fish Collection, which is actually co-managed by the School of Aquatic and Fishery Sciences, as well as the Burke Museum, which might be familiar to a lot of people from the Seattle area. So the neat thing is it's this gigantic collection of fish specimens. We are talking, let's see, I wrote it down, over 400,000 juvenile and adult fish specimens representing about 4,100 different species. And our students actually get to, as part of their classes, interact with the collection and learn from the collection. One of the neatest things about it is that while it's super impressive, it's limited to physically being there. But for now, meaning that they're physical specimens that people work with, so fish that have been preserved so you can hold them in your hands. But actually, a lot of our faculty and even some of our undergrads have been involved in taking the next step, which is actually digitizing some of these specimens, where you would use a CT scanner like you would see in a hospital to create a detailed 3D model that can be then shared around the world of that specimen. When it comes to studying invertebrates, there are so many ways to study it, but the one way I wanted to highlight is we have opportunities for our students to actually study at our Marine Field Station, Friday Harbor Labs. And this is actually a satellite campus of sorts where even as an undergraduate, you go up there and you live and you study for a full term. You're living just about steps away from your labs, your field sites, and the water. And we have an integrated program annually in the spring that we affectionately refer to as the Zoobot program. And it's invertebrate zoology and marine botany. And what's really cool about it is not only do you get to take courses in those two fields, but at the same time, students get to take a third course where they design an independent research project while they're up there.
What a great way to learn about the marine environment. Thank you, Joe. So as you saw in our chat, we have a pretty wide-ranging audience as far as age goes in the chat today. So can you tell us what students in middle school and then in high school can do to prepare for college and pursuing studies related to marine science?
Yeah, absolutely. And it was so great to hear some of the panelists reflect on this, as well as to hear the panelists talk about the fact that becoming a marine biologist was something that they had wanted to do for a long time. I can tell you that is so common, the kind of passion that people have and the passion that starts at a really early age. So people want to figure out how they can get involved and what they can do. Here's what I would say. First of all, you want to keep on trying to take every advantage to make progress in what we would consider our science and math fundamentals. So, even though we're talking about marine biology, it's more than just biology. So making some progress on math, making some progress on chemistry as you move up into high school. Even physics is something that's actually related and required in our programs for marine biology because it helps you understand the marine environment through oceanography. So you want to try and get every opportunity to make progress in that. The next thing that I would say is get involved with programs that give you a chance to kind of explore the scientific process, the scientific method, any experience, whether it's an after-school program or a lab or a camp program that you can get involved with. There's so many great ones that we have in Seattle, and I'm sure that there are a lot more that are out there, and any kind of science will help just so that you understand the fundamentals of the process. Final thing that I'll mention is not to forget that a huge part of science and marine biology is science communication and education as well. So when we're talking about even people that want to have dedicated research careers, it's still going to be such an important part of their career, being able to communicate their science, and not just to other scientists, but to be able to communicate their science to the public. So when you get an opportunity to volunteer at an aquarium like the Seattle Aquarium, or your local zoo or marine center, if you are being able to, if you're getting the chance to teach and communicate science, that really helps a lot.
Wonderful. Thank you, Joe. So as folks consider applying to college, can you tell us about some of the non-academic things that you advise students to consider, especially for those related in a marine-related career?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, I might talk a little bit more broadly, since we get a lot of students that inquire about our programs, about University of Washington in particular, because if you've grown up in the area, you kind of know about it. But one thing that you know about it is that it's really large. So it's something that I spend a good amount of time trying to talk to students about what it means to go to a large university. And it might not be for everybody. So getting a sense by visiting campus to get a sense of what it means to go to a large university. And, you know, I could just kind of quickly summarize by saying that one of the great things about it is just the diversity of resources and people that you see on the campus. Even whether it's a career or academic field like marine science, or any kind of personal interest, you'll find a smaller group of people within the larger campus community that you can connect with. But like I said, it's not for everybody. So the other big piece of advice that I can give is, whether you're exploring University of Washington or any other college opportunity, see if you can get a chance to connect with current students. So it's one thing to talk to staff like me, but it's another thing to, which I definitely want to encourage you to do, but it's another thing to be able to talk to a student who's there at that moment, who can give you a good sense, not only what it's like studying a specific field, but also what it's like living in the campus community. What are the good things? What are the challenging things about that? So that would be my big recommendation, is to try and find ways to connect to students who are going there at that moment when you're exploring schools.
Great. Thanks so much, Joe. We appreciate those recommendations. And Joe, can you tell people where they can learn more about the University of Washington's College of the Environment and marine science related majors?
Yeah, absolutely. So the best place to go and start exploring from here is just our websites. So I'll give the addresses here because they're pretty simple. If you are interested in marine biology, you just go to marinebiology, that's all one word, .uw.edu. Now, if you're interested in other aspects of environmental science, like I said in the video intro, we have a whole College of the Environment dedicated to this. If you're not exactly sure, you want to explore other related fields studying the environment, you just go to environment.uw.edu. And like I said, I represent a team of academic advisors. Our whole job is to help current and prospective students explore and plan for our programs. So the real neat thing is, even within the past week, I've already been connecting to people who attended last week's presentation, and they've had a chance to reach out to me. We scheduled individual time so that we can meet and hopefully answer their questions. So I hope there's people watching right now that'll feel comfortable enough reaching out to me, because I look forward to talking with them soon.
I'm so glad to hear that people are reaching out to you, Joe, and learning more about the opportunities at University of Washington and more broadly in marine science. We thank you for your time and for sharing your expertise with our audience today. And we look forward to seeing you again next week when we can ask a few more questions related to college and ocean careers.
Great. Thanks so much, Dave.
Thank you, Joe. I want to thank you all for joining us today for our second installment of the Seattle Aquarium's Ocean Career Series. I hope you enjoyed hearing from the aquarium staff members and from Joe Kobayashi of the University of Washington, and that you take with you a few things that you can apply to your own academic and career paths as you pursue a life in ocean science. This is just the second installment of our three-part series on ocean careers, and I look forward to seeing you next Wednesday at the same time for a chat centered on careers related to the research at the aquarium. You'll receive an email with a link to login instructions for next week's installment of the series. If you enjoyed today, please share the registration link with friends who are also interested in ocean careers. The ocean needs all the help it can get when caring ocean advocates. I also recommend that you sign up for our next virtual event, the Seattle Aquarium's Lightning Talks about octopuses on February 18th. Join us to learn more about these amazing animals during a series of fascinating 5-minute talks from octopus experts. One of the featured speakers will be the aquarium's own biologist, Catherine, who will be presenting about caring for octopuses at the Seattle Aquarium. You won't want to miss it. As a nonprofit institution, the Seattle Aquarium depends on your support to provide educational programs like the Ocean Career Series you enjoyed today. We encourage you to make a donation to support the aquarium's animal care, research, and education at a level that is meaningful to you. We appreciate your support as we work together to inspire conservation of our marine environment. Be sure to click subscribe to our YouTube channel to see future videos and live events from the Seattle Aquarium. One last time, I want to thank you all for joining us. We look forward to seeing you again next week on Wednesday at 3:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time as we learn together about ocean careers at the Seattle Aquarium.